Debuting in Medarot 8, it is an upgrade to the iconic samurai type from days of old. It is SAM-01M Proto Musha, with a kit of Reckless, Double Beam Sword, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Shura, which buffs power when attacked and a part is broken upon being attacked. Now, as another installment of the Samurai series, it's really nice to see that Proto Musha does not stray from the norm with the utilized kit of Beam Sword as the main and primary form of damage. But contrary to Tomoe, who is his counterpart, or even the original Samurai type, well, Samurai, this one tends to take a more aggressive approach when it comes to combating the target instead, with a skill that buffs base damage and a leg ability that buffs it further when attacked. Reckless is a support-based skill that once activated will actually do two bonus effects for one turn. The first of which is it will convert your attack into an AoE for that one turn, while in addition to this, it will also buff your base damage for that next blow. After that, the effect will wear off and the attack will revert back to whatever it was before. Beam Sword on both arms are conventional melee skills that have an optic attribute, which means they will get a times 2 damage bonus at 30% charge, and a times 3 damage bonus at 100% charge, making this a definite go-to for anyone that needs melee nuking but is locked only to close range combat. Biped Legs means that Proto Musha will have relatively good coverage across all terrains, arguably one of the most well-rounded legs at that, and the Shura ability actually does kind of tie in as a nice bonus effect essentially, as long as you can control your damage, as Shura will buff his power even higher if he's attacked and he loses a part. Now that does mean that does kind of put Proto Musha in a little bit of a dangerous light, as that means he has to take damage and potentially be crippled before he even has the chance to fight for this ability to kick in. But he can round himself off moderately well, and his HP pool actually is very nice to comp for this very same reason, with head HP at about 3750, arms about 3600, and his legs at 3450, a very healthy HP pool to kind of help keep that damage as low as possible and keep a very high HP pool. Melee resist to 1269 is very good though, as this does mean that Proto Musha is designed pretty much as a samurai would be expected to be able to hold his own up close and personal very moderately well. Whereas a shoot resist of 760 does mean he will be struggling to fight that enemy taking pot shots from afar and keeping the distance between them. An evade of 854 isn't bad, but it's not great either, as this does mean he may struggle to have a little bit of a dodge or graze attempt when fighting most conventional attacks or even low success ones. And a mobility of 755 is kind of in that upper tier cusp of the lower limit of where you'd want to see a good biped leg. So not terrible, but you can also make good use of it as kind of that lower cutoff, and kind of rely on your heat stat or your Medarot bonuses to kind of comp your extra speed. All this being said, as a pure set score, I still do have to rate Proto Musha a pretty solid 7 out of 10 and a moderately well-rounded model. The only real weaknesses I do see to Proto Musha in this case is the fact that unlike the original Samurai type who has full charge to complement Beam Sword, Proto Musha does not have that, which means that his first 1 or 2 hits of him using Beam Sword are not going to be dealing a lot of damage at base, as most of his rolls on the field focus more on base damage more than conditional or bonus damage from Metaforce charge, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it still does kind of hold itself as a notable weakness to mention. As mixed parts, I do have to rate him higher at a 7.5 out of 10. Given that neither of his arms are heavy, mean that you can make use of Beam Sword very flexibly on pretty much any team you want to use them on. And while his legs may not be super great, they are still something worth considering. And Reckless is something we don't see super often, but can be seen and put to very good use if certain conditions can be met. As a reminder, it does convert the attack to an AoE and buff its damage by about 30%, even if it's only just for one turn.